The next step I take is to sew the belt loop on, because once you put the sheath together it's kind of hard to stitch through it. So what I've done is I've marked with a pen where that's going to sit, and then I've also marked it, it probably doesn't show up very well, but here. Then I want to, this is the finished side of the leather. I found that the glue that I use adheres a little bit better if you rough it up just a little bit. Not a lot. What I'm going to be using is just plain old contact cement and a stick for an applicator. And if you've never used contact cement before, you apply it to both sides of the material that you want to adhere, and then you let it dry to the point where it's just a little bit tacky. 4 or 5 minutes. Be back when it's dry. Alright, I think that glue is set up enough to stick, so you just put it on there, press. This isn't going to hold a lot of tension, so the next thing I want to do is mark, because I'm going to sew this on, mark, and I use a stitching wheel. Gives you nice even spacing when you're sewing. We'll clean up that glue that's oozing out later. Head into the drill press. Alright, I'll be drilling those marks that we made. I'm using a 7/64 inch drill bit. And the key when you're doing this is just make your stitches or your holes as even as possible and take your time. Now we'll head out and sew them together. Alright, for stitching leather by hand, get some good quality needles. These are pretty heavy duty. I'm using a flat waxed artificial sinew. You can get various colors. I like the flat. I think it just gives it a better finish than the round, but both work just fine. Leave yourself a little end that you can put your thumb on to pull things tight. The key with the stitching is to make sure it is tight. And rather than bore you with watching me sew, I'll be back as soon as this is done. Alright, the belt loop is sewn up. And now we're going to glue up the welt first. And I've already roughed up this side of it, so I'm just going to put down some contact cement along here, then some contact cement along here, and then let them set for a while, attach them, and then finish up gluing up the sheath. I've also, you can probably see, marked with a pen an outline of the welt So I don't want to take the glue inside of that, because then you get glue inside the pouch of the sheath and gets on your blade and makes a mess. Be back when this is glued up. Alright, as you can see, the welt is attached over here and it's been glued up again. So now I want to fold it over and hopefully it'll all stick. Try and get this as close as you can. When you fold it, you can sand off any excess or cut if you don't have a big belt sander. But you want to get that as close as you can, because if you cut into the welt, like here, I'm a little off, but that's okay because I'm going to be sanding down to the welt. I don't want to make the welt so thin that it disappears. So if I'm going to air, I want to air on the side that does not get cut by the welt. Now I want that to adhere real good, so I want to press that. I happen to have piece of railroad tie, or railroad here, track. I will set that on there for a little bit, and then we'll come back and mark it for stitching. Alright, the glue's set up enough where it can work with it, and I've taken this edge to the grinder to even it out. I just used an old worn out 50 grit belt. I'll be going over that again after everything is sewn up with a pretty fine belt. Next thing I want to do, any excess glue that you get on there, go ahead and just scratch off with your nail lightly, get it off. The next step I want to do is mark where I'm going to stitch it. And remember, the welt is on this edge, so I'm going to stitch this edge. So to mark that, first I use a stitching groove. It's not necessary to use this. I'm using a flat waxed thread or a string. It sits pretty flat. If you use a round string, it sits up a little higher, but this just gives it a nice, neat appearance. And there are some that claim that by putting it in a little recessed pocket, because I'm going to be cutting away a little bit of leather here, you protect those threads. I've never had an issue doing it either way, but here goes. So now I've got the stitching groove marked where I'm going to space out my threads, but I think, just a personal preference maybe, but it gives it a nice clean appearance, taking that across the top as well. Now that's going to be dyed, it won't show up like that, but I think it just gives it a nice, neat appearance. Okay, you've seen the stitching wheel that I used before, or have used already. Here it is, and I'm just going to mark these, this channel for stitching. Again, if you don't have one of these, you can measure with a ruler. You can use a kitchen fork. They make thonging chisels. But it's a pretty handy tool. Got those marked. Now I'm going to go in and drill the holes using a 7/64 bit. Alright, this is all marked up, and I'm going to drill through the holes. Again, the key to making it even, or making it look good, is make sure that your drill spacing is even, which we've done. You just got to take your time doing it, and that your sheath sits flat as you drill. So when you've got a belt loop or something like that, it just takes a little work and practice to make that happen. get to the end here, you don't have a lot of space to put the wood under because of the belt loop, so you just got to be careful. Take your time. Alright, so the spacing you can see is fairly even, and hopefully it worked on the back as well. And as you can see, nothing's too far off on the back, so that worked out well. Alright, next we're going to stitch it up.